We had a theory about China. We had read things, watched the news, talked to people who had been there. We thought we had a reasonable picture of what to expect. We were wrong, not a little wrong, almost entirely wrong. This is the first video in a series about 22 days inside China. We traveled privately, just the two of us, with a different local guide in each city. No tour buses, no group schedules, just us, moving through one of the most extraordinary countries on earth, trying our best to understand it. We are going to show you the landscapes and the food, and the things you come to China to see. But we are also going to try to explain something harder. What this country actually is, how it thinks, what it has been through, why it ended up here. Because if you only watch the pretty pictures, you will miss the whole story. My name is Tressa, that guy you keep seeing on screen, exploring everything, sitting in every car. That's my husband, Zarko. Together we run this channel, and together we spent 22 days traveling China privately. We came back with more questions than answers, which honestly is the best possible outcome from any trip. I'm American, born and raised in the US, which means I grew up with a pretty specific picture of the world. Communism was the enemy. The Soviet bloc was gray and scary. And China was this distant, mysterious place you only heard about when something went wrong. Zarko's story is different. He grew up in Bulgaria, under communism, not reading about it, living it, one party, state control over everything. You kept your head down, and you did not ask the wrong questions. He left at 25 as a political refugee, built a business in Seattle that supported 125 families, and when we retired, we moved back to Bulgaria, to Burgas on the Black Sea. That was 7 years ago. I'm telling you all of this because it matters for everything you're about to see. When I look at China, I'm looking through American eyes. When Zarko looks at China, he's looking through the eyes of someone who actually lived inside a communist system. Our questions are completely different, and when we compare notes at the end of the day, neither one of us has the full picture alone, but together we get a little closer to something real. That's what this series is about, getting closer to something real about China. Before we left, we spent weeks trying to prepare, reading, watching documentaries, talking to anyone who'd actually been there. And we kept coming back to the same question, how? How does a country running a communist system, the same basic system that gave Bulgaria empty shelves, that gave the Soviet Union the gulags, that gave the world North Korea, how does that same system produce the world's second largest economy? Bullet trains, cashless cities, more new billionaires every year than anywhere else on the planet. It didn't add up, and for Zarko, who actually lived inside that system, it made even less sense than it did for me. So either China was doing something very different from what the textbooks say, or the textbooks were missing something important. We booked 22 days to find out. We flew out of Istanbul. Turkish Airlines is practically on our doorstep from Burgas, and Istanbul has become one of the great travel hubs in the world, connected to almost everywhere, with business class fares that are a fraction of what you'd pay on a European carrier. On a 10-hour flight, business class stops being a luxury. It becomes self-preservation. We landed early morning at Shanghai Pudong, and for our very first experience of China, we decided to take the Maglev into the city. Magnetic levitation, no wheels on the track, top speed of 430 kilometers per hour. It felt like exactly the right way to arrive. Honest review, it's 20 years old. The technology is actually German, invented in Germany, built here, then largely abandoned worldwide because it was too expensive and too inflexible to scale. The train was nearly empty on a weekday morning. The interior felt dated, and the top speed we actually hit was around 300 kilometers per hour, which sounds impressive until you learn that China's regular high-speed trains now reach similar speeds across the entire country. We'd see that for ourselves on our first bullet train ride a few days later. Our hotel was right on Nanjing Road, not near it, on it. We opened the curtains, and there it was directly below us, the most famous commercial street in Shanghai, running from the Bund straight through the heart of the city. It never stops, day or night. We slept for a few hours. The 7-hour time difference from Bulgaria is not kind. And then we went walking. This is the moment, the one I'd heard other travelers talk about, but hadn't quite believed. When what you expected and what you're actually standing inside quietly come apart. The streets are spotless. The architecture is extraordinary. Every luxury brand you've ever heard of is here. Alongside Chinese brands I'd never encountered. People are well dressed, unhurried, going about their lives. Everything moves with this purposeful efficiency I can only describe as organized. People compare Nanjing Road at night to Times Square. I've been to Times Square. Times Square is loud and chaotic in a way that feels almost accidental. Nanjing Road feels deliberate, like someone asked, what a great city street should actually look like, and then built the answer. There's a robot that makes coffee, right there on the street. You walk up, tap your order on a screen, and a mechanical arm makes your espresso. We walked to the Bund as the sun was going down, the famous waterfront promenade along the Huangpu River, with grand colonial-era European buildings on one side, and the futuristic towers of Pudong rising on the other. It's one of the iconic images of modern China. The old world that came here and built something, and the new world that rose to completely dwarf it. The crowd was enormous and almost entirely Chinese, families, young couples, older people in groups, very few Western faces. That turned out to be a pattern for all 22 days. China has become a massive internal tourism destination. The next morning, we had something unusual planned. We wanted to understand how China thinks about technology, because even before we arrived, that felt like one of the keys to understanding the country itself. So our guide took us to the Huawei flagship store. In the West, Huawei is complicated. In the US, the products are outright banned, considered a national security risk. In Europe, there's ongoing debate. And then you walk into their flagship store in Shanghai, and you immediately understand why they make governments nervous. This is not a phone company. Huawei is an entire ecosystem. Smartphones, tablets, laptops, smartwatches, home automation, and cars. Full electric vehicles, multiple models, beautiful things. Zarko moved through that showroom like a kid the week before Christmas. He sat in every single one, the ST9, the Z7, the M9, every one of them. What stopped us both was a laptop called the MateBook Fold. It opens like a normal laptop. Then the screen unfolds into a full-size display. Something between a tablet and a workstation in a single piece of hardware. The engineering is genuinely remarkable. Zarko stood at that table for a long time. Then the Xiaomi store. Xiaomi makes everything. Phones, TVs, rice cookers, scooters, robot vacuums, and a car. The Xiaomi SU7 is an electric sedan that's been making European and American automakers quietly nervous. It looks better than most of what it competes with, and it costs considerably less. The DJI store. Everything you're watching right now was filmed on a DJI Osmo Pocket 4, Zarco's camera of choice for this channel. Walking into the DJI flagship felt a little ceremonial. Walking store to store that morning, something kept pulling at me. This isn't innovation arriving from nowhere. China graduates more engineers every year than any other country on earth. The government identified AI, electric vehicles, and advanced manufacturing as national priorities, and then sustained that investment for decades. Whatever you think of the political system behind those decisions, the output is sitting right in front of you, and it works.
You can go 1,000 kilometers on this, 1,400 hybrid.
One of the most remarkable things we saw in Shanghai wasn't a landmark or a tech showroom. It was a supermarket. HEMA Fresh, owned by Alibaba, looks like an upscale grocery at first. Seafood tanks where you point at your fish and they prepare it for you. Beautiful produce. A hot food section. Normal aisles. But look up. Running above the entire store is a conveyor belt. A whole network of ceiling tracks with bags hanging from them, moving in every direction. A silent river of orders flowing overhead while people shop below. HEMA isn't just a supermarket. It's a fulfillment center that also lets people shop in person. Employees walk the aisles, filling online orders in real time, bag them, hook them onto the overhead system, and the bags travel to the back where delivery riders are waiting, 30 minutes or less, within 3 kilometers. We were told some people specifically choose where to live based on whether they're inside a HEMA delivery zone. The delivery infrastructure across Shanghai is unlike anything I'd seen before. In the financial district at lunchtime, we stopped to watch the office lunch system in action. Smart lockers built right into building lobbies. A driver arrives, taps a code, drops a bag of food in a specific compartment. The person upstairs gets a notification on WeChat, comes down, opens their compartment, takes their lunch. No contact, no confusion. While we were standing there, a drone arrived, an actual drone, descending from above the buildings with a food bag hanging underneath it, landing precisely on a marked drop zone. The food came from a restaurant on the rooftop of a nearby mall. From the moment someone placed the order to the moment the drone landed, 12 minutes. Our guide told us her mother, an elderly woman living alone, gets almost everything delivered this way. Groceries, meals, household items. She orders on WeChat, pays on WeChat, and it arrives at her door. She never has to carry heavy bags or fight through crowded markets. I found that genuinely moving. And that's when I started to understand why everyone in China is on their phone. It isn't mindless scrolling. Their phone isn't a distraction from their life. It is the system that runs their life. And in China, it runs it remarkably well. We also spent time in the BYD showroom. Build your dreams. Now the largest electric vehicle manufacturer in the world by sales. Bigger than Tesla. Bigger than Volkswagen. In China, electric vehicles aren't a trend or a glimpse of the future. They're just what cars are. One of the malls we visited had car dealerships on the ground floor. Inside the shopping mall, not in the parking lot, between the restaurant and the clothing store. You could buy an electric vehicle and then go up 2 floors for dinner. The contrast with the Tesla showroom nearby was hard to ignore. Huawei had 8 or 9 models filling the floor. And NIO is similar. Multiple models, lounge atmosphere, salespeople who genuinely wanted to walk you through everything. Tesla had 2 cars. It felt sparse by comparison. On our last morning in Shanghai, our guide did something we weren't expecting. Instead of another landmark or another showroom, she took us to a park. It was early, maybe 7:30, 8 in the morning, and the park was full. Not full, like a tourist site, full of people who belonged there. Retired people, mostly, spread across the whole space in different groups, each one doing something completely different.
What is the name of this park?
Fuxing Park.
Fuxing Park.
Fuxing Park.
Fuxing Park. And also for disabled people.
Disabled.
Wow.
Tai Chi in one corner. A ballroom dancing group nearby, 20 people, partner dancing on the paving stones to music from a small speaker on a bench. Further along, a group of musicians playing traditional instruments together. And then, further still, a group just singing, together, like they did this every single morning. I joined the Tai Chi group. It looked deceptively easy, slow, balanced, graceful. But the moment I tried to follow along, I realized I had completely misjudged it. Balancing on one foot, moving through those sequences, it takes real muscle, real concentration, real practice. Tai Chi is not what it looks like from the outside. We spent almost 2 hours there. We hadn't planned to. We just couldn't leave. At some point, our guide mentioned that women in China retire at 57, men around 62 or 63, earlier than almost anywhere in the Western world. And this is what they do with that time. Every morning, together, not at home in front of a television, out in the fresh air, moving, playing, singing, connecting. Zarko said something afterwards that I keep coming back to. He said, this is what retirement should look like. I couldn't argue with him. After those first few days in Shanghai, one question kept coming back. We'd walked Nanjing Road, stood at the Bund, watched a drone deliver lunch in 12 minutes, danced with strangers in a park at 8 in the morning. How did this happen? Here's what I knew going in. In 1950, China was one of the poorest countries on earth. The average person here earned less than the average person in sub-Saharan Africa. A century of war, invasion, famine, and political upheaval had torn the country apart. No electricity in most villages, no paved roads, no real industry. And then it got worse before it got better. In 1958, Mao Zedong launched what he called the Great Leap Forward. The plan was to transform China into a modern industrial power within 15 years. Private farming was abolished. The people at home had nothing left to eat. Between 15 and 45 million people died in the famine that followed. This is the China that existed within living memory. Many of the older people we met on this trip, guides, hotel staff, people who looked roughly our age, were born into that world, or their parents were. Real hollow-stomach starvation isn't distant history here. It's one generation back. Then, in 1978, something changed. Mao had died 2 years earlier. A man named Deng Xiaoping took power, and Deng looked at the wreckage of the previous 30 years and made a decision that was remarkable for how simple it was. Whatever works, he said. If a cat catches mice, it doesn't matter if it's black or white. He opened China to foreign investment, allowed private business alongside the state, created special zones where market capitalism was explicitly permitted, just to test it, to see what happened. He sent Chinese students abroad to study in Western universities. He rewarded results. He kept the Communist Party in political control, kept the one-party system, the state surveillance, the control of information. But onto all of that, he grafted a form of capitalism so aggressive and competitive, it makes most Western economies look cautious. And the result? China today is not communist in any way Marx would recognize. It's something with no clean name. A one-party political structure running on top of an extraordinarily dynamic market economy. The government sets direction, the market does the work, the people get richer, and in exchange for that rising prosperity, they accept a level of state control over their political lives and their access to information that would be unthinkable in a Western democracy. From Shanghai, we flew south to Guilin, a landscape so ancient It's been appearing in Chinese paintings for 2,000 years. We cruised the Li River. We climbed into the rice terraces of Longji. And we started to understand that China is not one thing. It's many things at once, and they don't always agree with each other. Over the next videos, we'll take you through 11 cities and 22 days. Landscapes unlike anything in Europe. People who were warmer and more generous than either of us had any reason to expect. And we'll try to understand, without looking away from the complicated parts, what China actually is.